The government has been hiding something from you. Right now, 10 specific quarters are being quietly pulled from circulation across the United States, not because they are worn out, not because they are old, because they contain a secret worth thousands of dollars, and most Americans are spending them every single day without knowing. I'm going to show you exactly which quarters to look for, starting with number 10 and ending with a coin that has sold at auction for over $47,000. Do not skip ahead. Do not close this video, because the coin sitting in your change jar right now could change your life. The U.S. Mint is counting on your ignorance. Starting today, that ends. Here are 10 quarters the government does not want you to find. Number 10. Before I show you this coin, I need you to understand something. This quarter was minted in 1976 to celebrate America's 200th birthday. The government was proud of it. They put it on television. They ran ads. They told every American to celebrate. What they did not tell you is what they secretly slipped inside some of these coins. A secret so valuable that the Federal Reserve quietly began pulling them from circulation decades ago, and they are still disappearing today. The coin is the 1776 to 1976 Bicentennial Quarter. You know this coin. You have seen this coin. You may have spent this coin this morning without realizing what you threw away, because here is what the government never announced. When they minted the Bicentennial Quarter, they made two versions, one for the public and one they hoped would quietly disappear. The version for the public was made from copper and nickel, worth 25 cents. Spend it, forget it. Move on. That's what they wanted. But the second version was different. The second version was 40% silver, stamped the same design, same size, same weight almost, and they put it into circulation right alongside the copper ones. Millions of Americans received silver quarters as change and had no idea. They spent them on candy bars. They dropped them in parking meters. They tossed them into fountains. The government watched and said nothing. Here is how you know which one you are holding. Look at the edge of your quarter, not the face, not the back, the thin edge, the side of the coin. A regular Bicentennial Quarter will show a copper stripe sandwiched between two silver-colored layers. That copper stripe means copper and nickel. Worth face value, but if that edge is a solid, unbroken silver color with no stripe, no copper, nothing, you are holding 40% silver. And that changes everything. The silver Bicentennial Quarter carries the S Mint mark. That S stands for San Francisco. The San Francisco Mint was specifically chosen to produce the silver versions. You will find the S Mint mark on the front of the coin to the right of George Washington's neck. A tiny letter, easy to miss. Most people have missed it for 50 years. The Denver Mint produced the D versions. Philadelphia produced coins with no mint mark at all. But only San Francisco made silver. Only the S is the secret. Now, here is where the value gets serious. A circulated 40% silver Bicentennial Quarter in average condition is worth $5 to $8 today. That is 32 times face value for a coin most people spend without blinking. An uncirculated silver example brings $15 to $30. A silver proof, the kind the mint sold in special sets, sells for $50 to $100, but those are just the base versions. The error versions are where things get dangerous for the government. A Bicentennial Quarter with a double die error, where the design was struck twice at a slightly different angle, has sold for $200 to $500. A coin struck on the wrong plancha has gone for over $1,000 at major auction houses. And there is one specific variety, the 1776 to 1976 no mint mark error on a coin that should have carried a mark, that is sold for over $2,000. Now look at your coin under a magnifying glass. Examine the lettering carefully. On certain Bicentennial Quarters, the words "In God We Trust" show filled letters where the die clogged and the letters partially merged together. That is a die error. That is a collectible coin. That detail separates a 25-cent coin from a coin worth hundreds of dollars at auction. The Bicentennial Quarter is being quietly erased from circulation. Banks are pulling them. Coin rolls are clearing them out. Every year that passes is one more year fewer of these coins surviving in the wild. If you are holding one right now, do not spend it. Check the edge first. Find that mint marks. Because you may be holding silver the government has been quietly reclaiming for 50 years. That is coin number 10. Coin number 9 is something the government tried to completely erase, not just hide, destroy, and only a handful survived. Most people looked at this coin and saw a bird. The United States Mint looked at this coin and saw a mistake they could not take back. because hidden inside the 2007 Idaho State Quarter is a manufacturing secret so embarrassing to the federal government that collectors have been quietly profiting from it ever since. And the Mint has never made a public announcement. Not one. They simply hoped you would keep spending it. The coin is the 2007 Idaho State Quarter. You recognize the design. A peregrine falcon on the left, the outline of the state on the right. The motto, Esto Perpetua, across the center, which is Latin for let it be perpetual. A beautiful coin. A coin millions of Americans received in change at grocery stores, gas stations, and drive-thrus across the country in 2007. A coin most of them spent without ever looking twice. That is exactly what the government counted on. Here is what they did not announce. The United States Mint produced the 2007 Idaho Quarter in 3 separate versions. 3, not 2. 3, and they released all 3 into general circulation without a single public warning about the differences. The first version came from the Philadelphia Mint. It carries a small P Mint mark on the front of the coin, to the right of George Washington's neck. The second version came from the Denver Mint. It carries a D in the same location. Both versions were made for general circulation. Standard copper nickel clad, standard production. These are the quarters that ended up in your change. These are the quarters most people know. But the third version is the one the government buried. The United States Mint also produced a satin finish version of the 2007 Idaho Quarter for their special mint sets. These coins were struck with a different surface texture. Not the mirror-like proof finish, not the standard business strike, a satin finish. A coin that looks slightly different under light. A coin with edges just sharp enough and a surface just smooth enough that it stands apart from every other Idaho quarter ever made. And some of these coins escaped the special mint sets entirely. They entered circulation, they landed in change jars. They got spent at laundromats and corner stores by people who had absolutely no idea what they were holding. A regular circulated 2007 Idaho Quarter from Philadelphia or Denver is worth face value, 25 cents, but an uncirculated example in mint state condition brings $1 to $3. A satin finish example in perfect condition sells for $10 to $25. That is 100 times face value for a coin that looks almost identical to a regular quarter unless you know exactly what you are examining. Now here is where it gets serious. The Idaho Quarter also has documented doubled die error varieties. A doubled die occurs when the coin die is impressed more than once at a slightly different angle, creating a ghost image behind the main design. On certain 2007 Idaho quarters, this doubling appears in the lettering on the reverse, specifically in the words Idaho and Esto Perpetua. Under a loupe or magnifying glass, you can see the letters appear to have a faint shadow. A second impression behind the primary text, this is not wear, this is not damage, this is a mint error that slipped through quality control and has never been officially acknowledged. A 2007 Idaho doubled die quarter in circulated condition sells for $50 to $150. An uncirculated example with strong doubling has sold at auction for over $300. And the off-center strike varieties, where the design was stamped slightly off the planche, leaving a blank crescent on one edge, have sold for over $500 to the right collector. Here's how you check your coin right now. Turn it over to the reverse. Under a magnifying glass, examine the word Idaho along the top rim. Look for a faint second impression behind each letter, then move to Esto Perpetua in the center. If those letters have a shadow, a ghost, a second edge behind the primary text, you are holding an error coin. Set it aside. Do not spend it. Do not clean it. Cleaning a coin destroys its value permanently. Put it in a soft coin sleeve and contact a professional grading service. Now check the edge. Like the Bicentennial Quarter, you are looking for that copper stripe sandwiched between the outer layers. On the Idaho Quarter, you should always see that stripe. If you ever find one with a solid silver edge, no copper at all, you have found a coin struck on the wrong planche. That is a major error. That is a coin worth thousands of dollars. The government minted over 600 million Idaho state quarters between Philadelphia and Denver. Combined 600 million coins. They flooded the market intentionally because when you flood the market with 600 million of anything, people stop paying attention. They stop looking. They stop checking. That is the strategy. Volume creates blindness, and blindness is exactly what the mint needed to hide what slipped through during production. That is coin number 9, but coin number 8 is the one that caused a full federal investigation, and the mint has never explained why. There is a tree on this coin, and that tree once saved an entire colony from being erased by a king. Not a metaphor, not a legend. It happened, And the United States government is now printing the proof of it on your pocket change and hoping you never look closely enough to ask why. This is the 1999 Connecticut State Quarter. And the image on the back is not just a pretty picture. It is a symbol of the single most defiant act in American colonial history. A moment where ordinary citizens looked a royal governor in the eye, refused his orders, and hid their freedom inside the hollow of a tree. Let that sink in. The year was 1687. King James II had had enough of Connecticut running itself. The colony had been operating under its own royal charter since 1662, a document that gave the people of Connecticut the legal right to govern their own land, their own laws, their own future. King James wanted it gone. He sent his royal governor, Sir Edmund Andros, to Hartford with one mission: collect the charter, bring it back to the crown, dissolve Connecticut's right to exist as a self-governing colony. Andros showed up with soldiers. He sat down across from Connecticut's leaders in a candlelit room and demanded the charter be handed over. The room went quiet. The charter was placed on the table. And then, without warning, every candle in that room went dark. When the lights came back on, the charter was gone. A man named Joseph Wadsworth had grabbed it in the darkness and ran. He carried it through the streets of Hartford and hid it inside the hollow trunk of a massive white oak tree on Samuel Willis's property. The king's men searched. They found nothing. Connecticut kept its charter. Connecticut kept its freedom. That tree became known as the Charter Oak, and it stood for another 169 years until a violent storm tore it down in August of 1856. By then, it wasn't just a tree. It was the most famous tree in America, the symbol of a people who refused to surrender their rights to a government that had no business taking them. And now that tree is on your quarter. Here is what the Mint does not advertise. The 1999 Connecticut State Quarter was one of the very first coins released in the entire 50 State Quarters program. That means it has been sitting in circulation longer than almost any other state quarter in existence. 26 years of being passed from hand to hand, dropped in jars, tossed in drawers. Most people who have held this coin have no idea what they are holding. They see a tree, they move on. But collectors know, and this is where the money lives. The 1999 Connecticut Quarter was struck at both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. Early production coins from 1999 are now considered the most condition-sensitive quarters in the entire state series. A Connecticut quarter in circulated condition is worth face value to most people, but a Connecticut quarter graded Mint State 65 or higher by a professional grading service is worth between $50 and $200. A Mint State 67 specimen has sold for over $300 at auction. And then there are the errors. The 1999 Connecticut quarter has documented die varieties that the Mint never publicized. Double die obverse coins where Washington's portrait shows a faint but visible doubling on the lettering and facial features have been confirmed in the series. Off-center strikes exist. Broad strikes exist. Coins that came out of the Philadelphia facility with weak reverse strikes where the Charter Oak itself appears faded or incomplete are known in the collector community. The Mint did not issue a recall. The Mint did not issue a statement. They let these coins walk out the door and into your change jar, and this is the part that should make you angry. The Charter Oak is on this coin because it represents defiance. Because it represents a group of people who refuse to let a powerful government strip away something that belonged to them. That is the story this coin is supposed to tell. But the same institution that printed this story on your money is the one that has been quietly hoping you never figure out that the coin in your pocket might be worth 200 times its face value. Check every single 1999 Connecticut quarter you can find. Look at Washington's face under magnification. Look for doubling on the lettering. Look at the Charter Oak on the reverse and check whether the detail is sharp or soft. A weak or doubled strike on this coin is not damage. It is a mint error, and it is worth real money. The colonists hid their freedom inside a tree so a king could not take it from them. You have been hiding this coin in a jar on your counter without knowing what it is worth. That ends today, but coin number 7 holds a secret the Mint stamped into the metal by accident, a date that hadn't happened yet, printed on legal U.S. currency. This coin was minted in the year 2000, and stamped on the back of it is the year 2007, a date that did not exist yet, a date that was still 7 years away, and the United States Mint put it on legal currency and sent it into circulation anyway. That is not a misprint. That is not a mistake the Mint will admit to. That is a coin that contains a timestamp from the future sitting in your change jar right now, and almost nobody has ever stopped to ask how that is even possible. This is the 2000 Virginia State Quarter, and once you understand what you are actually holding, you will never look at pocket change the same way again. On the reverse of this coin, there are 3 ships: the Susan Constant, the Godspeed, the Discovery. These are the vessels that carried the first permanent English settlers to the shores of America in 1607. They landed at a place called Jamestown, Virginia. They built the first permanent English settlement on American soil. And without that landing, without those ships, without those 104 men who stepped onto that shore in the middle of winter with almost nothing, there is no United States of America. That is what this coin is commemorating. The founding moment, the original arrival, the beginning of everything that came after. But look at the coin more closely. Below the 3 ships stamped clearly into the metal are the words Jamestown, 1607 to 2007, Quadricentennial. And the coin itself is dated the year 2000, 7 years before the Quadricentennial actually happened, 7 years before the 400th anniversary of Jamestown was observed. 7 years before any celebration, any ceremony, any official commemoration of that founding moment it took place, the mint stamped a future date onto a coin, pressed millions of copies of it, and released them into the American economy without a single public explanation. Think about what that means. Every single 2000 Virginia State Quarter in existence is carrying a date on its face that was scientifically impossible when the coin was made. You cannot commemorate something 400 years after it happened when that 400th anniversary is still 7 years away. And yet here it is, in your hand, in your pocket, in the coffee can on top of your refrigerator. And this is where it gets interesting for collectors. The 2000 Virginia State Quarter was struck at both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint during the first full year of the 50 State Quarters program. First-year strikes from the Philadelphia facility in particular are now among the most closely examined coins in the entire series. Collectors know that high-grade examples of this quarter are increasingly difficult to find. A Virginia quarter in average circulated condition looks like nothing. It is just change. But a Virginia quarter graded Mint State 66 or higher has sold at auction for over $150. A Mint State 67 specimen has crossed $250. The ships are the key. When graders evaluate this coin, the detail on the 3 ships is the first thing they examine. The rigging, the hull lines, the water beneath the vessels. On poorly struck coins, that detail goes soft and flat. On a strong strike from a fresh die, the ships look almost three-dimensional. That distinction in quality is the difference between face value and a coin worth several $100s to the right buyer. There are also known error varieties in this series. Double die coins exist on both the obverse and reverse. Off-center strikes have been documented. Coins with weak date numerals, where the year 2000 appears faded or partially missing, are circulating right now and being ignored by people who have no idea what they are looking at. And then there is the broader question the Mint has never answered. Why put a future date on a coin? Why commemorate an anniversary 7 years before it occurred? The official explanation is that the quarter program required designs to be finalized years in advance, and the Virginia design incorporated the upcoming Quadricentennial as a forward-looking tribute to the settlement's legacy. That is the answer they give. And it is technically true, but it still means the government pressed millions of coins with a date from the future and put them into everyday circulation without ever explaining that to the public, without ever telling the cashier at the grocery store or the retiree sorting through a jar of change on a Tuesday afternoon that the coin in their hand was commemorating something that had not happened yet. Check your Virginia quarters. Both sides look for the year 2000 on the front and the years 1607 to 2007 on the back. Look at the ship detail under a loop and look for any doubling on the lettering. A high-grade Virginia 2000 quarter is sitting in someone's collection right now who found it in a cash register 10 years ago and never knew what they had. The first men to arrive in America came on 3 ships. The Mint put those ships on a coin and dated it 7 years into the future. And the government has been hoping you would just make your purchase and move on without asking why. But coin number 6 carries a scar from the deadliest military attack ever launched against American soil, and the government put the proof of it in your pocket. There is a tree on this coin that stopped a British invasion. Not slowed it, not delayed it. Stopped it cold. and the Royal Navy fired hundreds of cannon rounds trying to break through it and failed every single time. The tree won, the British left, and 10 days later, America declared its independence. That tree is now on your quarter, and the United States government has been circulating it for 26 years without ever explaining to the public what it actually means. This is the 2000 South Carolina State Quarter, and the image on the back is not decoration. It is a battlefield monument pressed into metal and handed to you as pocket change. The year was 1776, June 28th. The British Empire had assembled one of the most powerful naval forces ever deployed against the American colonies, 9 warships, over 270 cannons, commanded by Admiral Sir Peter Parker, carrying troops under General Henry Clinton. Their mission was to seize Sullivan's Island at the mouth of Charleston Harbor, establish a foothold in the South, crush the rebellion before it could spread, and force the colonies back under the crown. Standing between the British fleet and Charleston was a fort, a small unfinished fort built from the logs of the sable palmetto tree, the same tree that is on this coin. The British commanders looked at that fort and they were not impressed. The walls were not stone, they were not brick. They were soft, spongy palmetto logs stacked 16 feet thick. Military engineers on the British side called it a laughingstock. They calculated that their cannon fire would reduce it to splinters within the first hour. Parker ordered the bombardment to begin. It did not go as planned. The palmetto logs did not splinter. They did not crack. They absorbed the British cannon fire the way a sponge absorbs water. Round after round slammed into those walls and disappeared. The soft, fibrous wood of the sable palmetto simply swallowed the iron and held. The fort's commander, Colonel William Moultrie, kept his men fighting through one of the most intense naval bombardments in colonial history. The British fired for nearly 12 hours. They achieved nothing. By the end of the day, the British fleet had taken catastrophic damage. Parker's own flagship lost its rear end to American cannon fire. The admiral himself was wounded. The troops Clinton had positioned for the ground assault were stranded and could not reach the island. The British had no choice but to withdraw. They did not attempt another major southern offensive for 3 years. 10 days after that battle, on July 4th, 1776, the Continental Congress signed the Declaration of Independence. Historians have documented the direct connection between the victory at Sullivan's Island and the confidence it gave colonial leaders to move forward with independence. That palmetto log fort did not just hold a harbor. It changed the trajectory of the entire revolution, and the South Carolina State Quarter is carrying that moment in your pocket right now. Here is what the Mint does not tell you. The 2000 South Carolina Quarter was struck at both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. So like the Virginia Quarter released the same year, this is a first-year coin from the 50 State Quarters program. And first-year coins are the ones that have been circulating the longest, 26 years. That means condition is everything. A South Carolina Quarter in average circulated condition is worth face value, but a South Carolina Quarter graded Mint State 65 or higher by a professional grading service tells a completely different story. Mint State 65 examples regularly sell for between $40 and $100. Mint State 67 specimens have crossed $200 at auction, and deep mirror proof-like examples, coins that came out of the mint with an almost reflective surface quality, have commanded significant premiums with serious collectors. The key detail graders look for on this coin is the palmetto tree itself. The fronds, the texture of the trunk, the Carolina wren perched in the branches, and the yellow jessamine flower below it. On a strong strike from a fresh die, all 3 elements are crisp, defined, and sharp. On a weak strike from a worn die, they blur together into a flat, indistinct cluster. That difference in strike quality is the difference between face value and a coin worth 100 times that amount. Error varieties exist in this series as well. Double die coins have been documented. Off-center strikes are known. Die cracks running through the reverse design have been confirmed on certain Philadelphia Mint strikes. These are not collector theories. They are cataloged varieties that the Mint never publicly announced and never recalled. This is the pattern. The Mint releases coins with known errors, with documented varieties, with stories that connect directly to the most significant moments in American history. And then they rely on the fact that most people will never look. Most people will take their change, drop it in a jar, and forget about it. The South Carolina Quarter will sit there next to a grocery receipt and a dead battery, and nobody will pick it up and turn it over and ask why there is a tree on the back that once defeated the most powerful Navy in the world. You know now. Check every South Carolina 2000 quarter you can find. Look at the palmetto tree detail under magnification. Look for doubling on the lettering. Look for die cracks on the reverse. A high-grade example of this coin is sitting in ordinary circulation right now, being spent for 25 cents by someone who has no idea what they are holding. The tree that stopped a British invasion is on your quarter. The question is whether you are going to keep spending it or start paying attention. But coin number 5 was nearly wiped from existence entirely. 60 million of them were killed, and the government put the survivor on your money. There were 60 million of them. 60 million. They covered the American plains from horizon to horizon in herds so massive that early settlers said they looked like a moving brown ocean. They took days to pass. They shook the ground when they ran. They were the most dominant land animal on the North American continent. The United States government killed almost all of them on purpose. By 1889, fewer than 1,000 bison remained alive in the entire country. The government did not stop it. In many cases, the government encouraged it. And then, more than a century later, they put 2 bison on a quarter and handed it to you as pocket change. This is the 2006 North Dakota State Quarter. And the image on the back is not a celebration. It is a confession pressed into metal and circulated to 300 million people who were never told what they were actually holding. At the peak of the great bison herds, indigenous nations across the Great Plains had built entire civilizations around these animals. The bison provided food, clothing, shelter, tools, medicine. Every part of the animal was used. Nothing was wasted. The relationship between the Plains nations and the bison was not just economic. It was the foundation of an entire way of life that had sustained people across this land for thousands of years. The United States government understood this completely, and that is exactly why the killing was allowed to continue. Military commanders during the Indian Wars were explicit about the strategy. General Philip Sheridan told Congress directly that buffalo hunters were doing more to defeat the Plains nations than the entire U.S. Army combined. He suggested giving each hunter a bronze medal with a dead buffalo on one side and a discouraged-looking Native American on the other. The logic was simple and brutal. Destroy the bison and you destroy the civilization that depended on them. No food, no shelter, no choice but to surrender. The commercial hunting industry did the rest. Professional hunters moved across the plains in organized teams. They could kill dozens of bison in a single hour. They took the hides and left the carcasses to rot by the millions. The bones were eventually collected and sold as fertilizer. By the time the slaughter slowed, the great herds were functionally gone. An animal that had roamed this continent for 10,000 years was reduced to a few scattered survivors in less than 2 decades, and then the government put them on a coin. The 2006 North Dakota Quarter shows 2 bison standing on the rolling plains with a setting sun behind them. Below the animals, the Missouri and Red Rivers are represented. The design is meant to capture the natural beauty and agricultural heritage of the state. That is the official description. That is what the Mint says when you ask about the design. What the Mint does not say is that those 2 bison on the back of your quarter represent what is left, not a symbol of abundance, a symbol of what was nearly erased. Those 2 animals standing on those open plains are the visual echo of 60 million dead. Now, here is what matters for your collection. The 2006 North Dakota State Quarter was struck at both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. By 2006, the State Quarters program was in its later years, and collector attention to strike quality and die varieties had become significantly more sophisticated. This is important because the bison design on the North Dakota Quarter is one of the most detail-intensive reverses in the entire 50-state series. The texture of the bison's coat, the definition of the animal's legs and faces, the engraved lines representing the rivers in the lower field of the coin. On a strong strike from a fresh die, every element of that design comes through with extraordinary clarity. On a weak strike, it collapses into a soft, flat impression that looks nothing like the intended design. A North Dakota Quarter in average circulated condition is worth face value. But a North Dakota quarter graded mint state 65 or higher has sold for between $60 and $120. Mint state 67 specimens from the Denver Mint have crossed $200 at auction, and die varieties exist in this series. Double die coins have been documented. Die polish lines affecting the reverse field have been confirmed on certain Philadelphia strikes. Coins with abnormal weakness on the bison's facial features are known in collector circles and represent identifiable die varieties that the mint never cataloged publicly. These coins are circulating right now. They are being dropped into vending machines. They are being handed back as change at gas stations. They are sitting in the bottom of someone's coat pocket right now, worth $100, being treated like 25 cents. This is the coin the government made to celebrate the land of North Dakota, the wide open plains, the rolling prairies, the rivers, and the sky. What they did not put in the design notes, what they did not print on any placard at any mint tour, is that those plains were made silent on purpose, that the emptiness represented in that peaceful image was engineered by policy and carried out by hired killers with rifles and federal approval. The bison survived, not because of anything the government did, because a small group of private citizens and early conservationists refused to let the last animals die. Theodore Roosevelt, the American Bison Society, ranchers in Oklahoma and Montana who held on to small herds when the commercial hunters had moved on. They saved what was left. They brought the bison back from under 1,000 animals to nearly 500,000 today. And the government put 2 of them on a quarter and hoped you would just spend it. Check every 2,000, 6 North Dakota quarter in your possession, both mint marks. Look at the bison detail under magnification. Look for die varieties in the reverse field. Look for doubling on the lettering. You might be holding a coin worth 100 times its face value without knowing it. 60 million animals reduced to fewer than 1,000 and then put on your money as if nothing happened. Pay attention to this coin. But coin number 4 was struck with a flaw so obvious the mint had to know. They shipped it anyway, and it is still out there right now. The Georgia quarter was number 4 in the entire state quarter program, released July 19th, 1999, one of the very first quarters ever struck in this series. And right from the beginning, from the very first production run, the United States Mint was already hiding something. This coin has errors, not 1, not 2. Multiple documented error varieties across multiple production runs at multiple mint facilities, doubled die errors, off-center strikes, die rotation errors, and the mint never once issued a public statement about any of them, not in 1999, not in 2000, not ever. Here is the coin. The reverse shows a peach at the center of Georgia's state outline, surrounded by live oak branches. The motto reads, "Wisdom, justice, moderation." It looks ordinary. It looks clean. But this coin came out of one of the most chaotic production periods in modern mint history. The state quarter program was brand new in 1999. The mint was ramping up production at a scale it had never attempted before. Billions of coins, multiple dies, multiple facilities running around the clock. And in that chaos, errors slipped through. The most valuable variety is the doubled die obverse. This is not a smudge. This is not a camera trick. This is a mechanical error that occurs when the die used to strike the coin receives the design impression twice at a slightly different angle. The result is a coin where Washington's portrait appears doubled, where the letters in Liberty look layered, where "In God We Trust" appears thicker on one edge and softer on the other. If you see a Georgia 1999 quarter where the text looks wrong, where something feels slightly off about the lettering, that is not a dirty coin. That is a double die, and it is worth money. How much money? A circulated Georgia 1999 double die in average condition brings $50 to $200. A sharp example with strong visible doubling has sold at auction for more than $400. And because most people do not know what they are looking at, most of these coins have been spent. Dropped into vending machines, tossed into tip jars, circulated for 26 years with nobody realizing what they had. That stops today. Here is how you check a Georgia 1999 quarter. First, look at the date on the obverse. The digits should be clean and distinct. If they look like they have a shadow, like each number has a twin image just slightly offset, keep that coin. Second, look at the word Liberty above Washington's head. Same test. Is the lettering sharp and single, or does it appear layered, doubled, almost blurred? Third, look at the motto, "In God We Trust." If any of those words show doubling, you may be holding a $400 coin right now. And here's the critical rule. Do not clean it. Do not polish it. Do not run it under warm water and scrub it with a cloth because you think it will look better that way. A cleaned error coin is worth almost nothing. To a serious collector, the original surface, the original patina, even the tarnish and the wear are all part of what makes that coin authentic. You strip that surface and you strip the value. Leave it exactly as you found it. Now, here is what separates the Georgia quarter from almost every other coin on this list. Most error coins come from a single die, a single production run, a single mistake. The Georgia 1999 quarter has multiple known varieties. That means this error occurred more than once. It occurred across different dies and different facilities, which means there are more of these coins in circulation than almost any other error quarter we have discussed today. Your odds of finding one are real. They are not theoretical. They are documented by collectors who have been hunting this coin for more than 2 decades. The Mint never called a press conference. There was no announcement, no recall, no apology. The federal government allowed known error coins to enter the money supply in one of the very first state quarters ever struck, and they chose silence because a recall would have cost billions, because an admission would have raised questions they did not want to answer. So they stayed quiet. And the coins went out into the world 26 years later. They are still out there, sitting in coin jars, rolling around in car cup holders, passed over at flea markets by people who have no idea what they are looking at. Now you know. Check every Georgia 1999 quarter you find. This is not a long shot. This is a documented error on one of the first coins in the entire state quarter program, and it could be in your pocket right now. But coin number 3 stopped me cold the moment I understood what I was looking at. The Mint put a future date on official United States currency, and nobody explained why. The Virginia quarter was released in October of 2000, and the moment you look at the reverse of this coin, something does not add up. The date on the obverse says 2000, the year this coin was made, but the design on the reverse reads Jamestown 1607 to 2007. That second number, 2007. The Mint stamped a date on this coin that was 7 years in the future at the time of minting. 7 years. Official United States currency, and you were just supposed to accept it. Think about what that means. In the year 2000, the Mint looked at a coin design, approved it at the highest levels of the federal government, and authorized the stamping of a future date onto legal tender. Not a commemorative medal. Not a collector item sold in a display case, a quarter. A coin meant to circulate through American commerce, a coin you were supposed to pick up at a gas station and spend without a second thought. And on that coin, a date that had not happened yet. Here is the history. The Virginia quarter commemorates the founding of Jamestown in 1607. The reverse design shows 3 ships. The Susan Constant, the Godspeed, the Discovery. These were the 3 vessels that carried the first permanent English settlers to what would become the United States of America. Below the ships, the inscription reads Jamestown 1607 to 2007. That second date was meant to look forward to the 400th anniversary of the founding, a quadricentennial that would not happen for 7 more years. The Mint approved it. The Treasury approved it. The United States government said yes. Stamp a future date on a quarter and release it into the money supply. And here is what nobody talks about. The 2007 anniversary came and went. A separate commemorative coin was issued. Jamestown got its celebration. But what happened to the millions of Virginia 2000 quarters already in circulation? Nothing. They kept circulating. They are still circulating today. A coin with 2 dates on it, one from the year it was made, one from a year that has now come and gone. And most people have never once stopped to read what is printed on the coin in their hand. But there is more to this coin than a future date. The Virginia 2000 quarter has documented error varieties that most collectors do not know exist. Double die errors on the obverse have been found and cataloged. Off-center strikes have surfaced. And because this coin was minted in enormous quantities, one of the most produced state quarters in the entire program, the number of error coins that entered circulation is proportionally massive. A Virginia 2000 double die obverse in circulated condition can bring $100 to $300, depending on the strength of the doubling and the overall condition. A high-grade example has sold for significantly more. And because most people treat this coin as ordinary pocket change, most of those error coins have been spent, circulated, and absorbed into everyday commerce for 25 years. Here is what to look for. Start with the date on the obverse. The digits should be clean and perfectly distinct. If you see any doubling, any shadow image, any thickening of the numerals, that is your first sign. Move to the word liberty. Check In God We Trust. If any of the lettering appears layered or offset from itself, you may have an error coin worth several $100s. And then look at the reverse. Look at those 3 ships. Look at that inscription. Jamestown 1607 to 2007. A future date on a coin made in the year 2000. Read it carefully, because this is the only circulating United States quarter in history to carry a date that did not yet exist when the coin was struck. The Mint did not announce this as unusual. There was no press briefing, no public conversation about the implications of stamping a future date onto official currency. They approved it, they shipped it, and they expected the American public to take their change and move on. Most people did, but not collectors, not the people who pay attention, not the people who understand that every coin tells a story, and some of those stories are ones the government never intended you to read. The Virginia 2000 quarter is not just a state coin. It is a document, a piece of official United States currency that looked forward in time and stamped that future into metal. That future has now passed, and the coin is still circulating. Check every Virginia 2000 quarter you find. Read the reverse. Look at those dates. This coin has been in your hand before. You just did not know what you were holding. But coin number 2 shows something the government can never restore, something that existed when this quarter was made, and it is completely gone now, forever. On May 3rd, 2003, at approximately midnight, a natural rock formation in Franconia Notch State Park in New Hampshire collapsed. It fell without warning. No earthquake, no storm, no structural failure anyone predicted. The old man of the mountain, a granite profile that had jutted from the cliff face for 12,000 years, simply let go. By morning, it was rubble at the base of the mountain, and every New Hampshire state quarter ever minted still shows it standing. Let that settle in. The New Hampshire quarter was released in August of 2000. 3 years before the collapse, the reverse design features the old man of the mountain, a natural rock formation that looked like the profile of a human face staring out from the cliff. Below it, the state motto, "Live free or die." 4 words, the most defiant motto of any state in the Union. A phrase New Hampshire has carried since the Revolutionary War, and underneath that motto, a face made of stone that no longer exists. This is the only coin in United States history that shows a natural landmark that has since been destroyed. Not abandoned, not renovated, not relocated, destroyed, gone. The old man of the mountain will never be rebuilt because you cannot rebuild a geological formation that took 12,000 years to create. What nature built over 12 millennia was gone in a single night. And every quarter bearing the New Hampshire design is now a coin showing something you can never see again in the real world. Think about what collectors call this, obsolete subject matter. When a coin depicts something that no longer exists in the same form, its historical significance increases with every passing year. The old man of the mountain has been gone for over 20 years now. An entire generation has grown up, never seeing it, never standing at the base of Franconia Notch and looking up at that granite face. They can only see it on a coin, on this coin. But the New Hampshire quarter is not just emotionally significant. It has documented error varieties that compound its value for serious collectors. Off-center strikes have been found, doubled die varieties have been cataloged, and high-grade uncirculated examples, the kind that were never spent, never handled, never passed through 25 years of everyday commerce, have sold at auction for hundreds of dollars. An error variety in high grade can bring significantly more. Here is the thing. The New Hampshire quarter was minted in large quantities, but most of those coins have been circulating since 2000. Most have been worn down by millions of transactions. The number of truly pristine examples still in existence is shrinking with every passing year. And with every year that passes, the distance between us and that night in 2003, the night the face fell from the mountain, grows larger. The coin becomes more historical. The image on the reverse becomes more irreplaceable. Here is what to look for. Find a New Hampshire 2000 quarter with strong detail on the old man of the mountain. The rock profile should be sharp and distinct. Look for any signs of doubling on the obverse. Check the motto. Check the date. If you find a coin where the details are unusually crisp, where "Live free or die" looks almost freshly struck, set it aside. Do not spend it. Do not clean it. have it evaluated, and if you find one in an old roll, in a bag, in a jar that has been sitting untouched since the early 2000s, you may have exactly what collectors are hunting. An original strike, unmolested by circulation, showing the face of a mountain that has not existed for more than 20 years. There is no other coin like this in American history. No other state quarter, no other circulating coin of any kind shows a subject that was physically destroyed after the coin was minted. The New Hampshire quarter is not just a collectible, it is a memorial. A piece of official government currency that preserves in metal something the earth itself erased. Live free or die. That was New Hampshire's promise to the world, and the old man of the mountain kept watch over that promise for 12,000 years. He fell in 2003, but he is still on the coin. But coin number 1 is the one the mint tried to bury. An unauthorized design change worth up to $1,500, and it is still out there right now. The Wisconsin quarter is number 1 on this list for one reason. Because what happened at the mint in 2004 was not an accident. It was too precise, too deliberate, too perfectly placed for any reasonable person to call it a mistake. And the mint investigated it, refused to fully explain it, and hoped you would move on. You should not move on. Here's the coin. The Wisconsin State Quarter was released in October 2004. The reverse design features a wheel of cheese, an ear of corn, and a cow's head, a proud agricultural image for a state known for its dairy and its farmland. Clean design, official, approved by the state, the mint, and the Treasury of the United States. But some of those coins came out with something extra, an extra leaf. On the ear of corn in the lower left of the design, certain Wisconsin quarters show an additional leaf that does not appear on the official approved design. Not a smudge, not a dye chip, not a random metal deposit. A fully formed, perfectly rendered leaf in exactly the right place, with exactly the right shape, struck with exactly the same precision as every other element on that coin. There are 2 varieties, the extra leaf high and the extra leaf low. The extra leaf high shows the additional leaf angled upward, curving toward the top of the ear of corn. The extra leaf low shows it curving downward. Both varieties were found in circulation shortly after the Wisconsin quarter was released. Both were confirmed by numismatic experts. Both are now officially recognized error coins worth serious money. How serious? An extra leaf high Wisconsin quarter in circulated condition brings $200 to $500. An extra leaf low in circulated condition brings similar numbers. In high, uncirculated grades, certified by PCGS or NGC, these coins have sold at auction for over $1,000. The highest documented sales have reached $1,500 for a single quarter. Now, here is what the mint said when collectors started finding these. First, they said nothing. Then, as the story spread through the numismatic community and started reaching mainstream news outlets, the mint issued a statement. They called it an unauthorized change made by a mint employee at the facility in Tucson, Arizona, where the dies for the Wisconsin quarter were being produced. An unauthorized change by a single employee. That produced 2 distinct, precisely rendered leaf varieties that made it through every level of quality control, that passed inspection at the dye production facility, that was approved, shipped, used to strike millions of quarters, and released into general circulation before any one official caught it. And nobody noticed until collectors found the coins in everyday change. Does that sound like one rogue employee acting alone to you? Some numismatists believe this was deliberate sabotage, a mint worker who understood exactly what they were doing, who knew that an unauthorized design change on a state quarter would create an instant rarity, and who executed it with enough precision that it survived every checkpoint between the dye room and the American public. Others believe it was a die-cutting error so specific it defies any reasonable probability. Either way, the mint's explanation did not hold up under scrutiny, and the mint stopped talking about it. The coins stayed in circulation. Here's how to find an extra leaf Wisconsin quarter. Look at the ear of corn in the lower left of the reverse design. The standard Wisconsin quarter shows a clean husk with leaves running parallel to the ear. If you see an additional leaf in the lower portion of the corn, one that does not match the standard design, you have found either the high or the low variety. The difference is visible to the naked eye. You do not need a magnifier. You do not need special equipment. You just need to look. And once you have seen it, you cannot unsee it. The Wisconsin 2004 quarter was minted in massive quantities, hundreds of millions of coins, but the error dies were only in service for a limited time before being pulled from production. The percentage of extra leaf quarters in that total output is small enough to make them genuinely scarce. Large enough that they are still being found in circulation in 2026, still being found today in change from grocery stores and gas stations and fast food counters across this country. This coin is number one on this list because it is the clearest example of everything we have been talking about today. A coin with an unauthorized change, a coin the mint tried to suppress, a coin with a story the government did not want told publicly, and a coin that right now in 2026 is still moving through American commerce, being spent by people who have no idea they are holding $1,500 in their hand. Do not spend your Wisconsin quarters without checking them first, ever again.